Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome and thank you for logging into our webinar today, which is currently being jointly hosted by Antares Solutions and Metalogics. And in this presentation, we're going to be showing you how to use Content Matrix and ControlPoint to effectively migrate and upgrade your SharePoint environments and your content, as well as how you can manage that content, enforce governance, and administer SharePoint simply and effectively. The majority of this webinar will be centered around a very intuitive demonstration of the features, and we should have enough time at the end for a quick Q&A session as well. Now, I must just mention that this is a listening-only webinar, so when you log in, you'll see that you can't interact directly with us, but you'll see that there's a Q&A panel at the bottom right-hand side of your screen in the GoToWebinar console. So while we're going through the actual presentation, if you do have any questions, please feel free to write down those questions there. And either during the actual presentation or immediately afterwards, we'll try and answer all the questions that come in. So just as we get started, a little bit about us. On the line, representing Antares Solutions, my name is Robert Haziotis. I'm the Head of Information and Communication Solutions here. Also on the line, we have Dalton Lodora, who's the Director of Sales for the APAC region at Metalogics, and Michael Rain as well, who's a Senior Solution Engineer at Metalogics. And he's going to be the one who's going to be driving the majority of this presentation with an interactive demonstration. In terms of the agenda, I'm going to be talking just for a couple more minutes to give you a quick overview of Antares as a system integrator, what we do and what we offer in the space. I'll then be handing over to Dalton, who will do the same for Metalogics and give you a quick overview of what solutions they have on offer. And then we'll go to Michael, who, as we mentioned, will be driving the majority of this presentation, and he'll be demonstrating the Content Matrix and ControlPoint features. At the end, we should have enough time for any questions and comments that you have as well. So just to talk a little bit about Antares, we're an Australian-based organization. We've been around for about 7 years. We've got offices in Sydney and in Brisbane. We're also a Microsoft Gold partner. We operate as a Gold partner in portals and collaboration, business intelligence, and we're also a Microsoft Gold partner in content management and the data platform. Now, in terms of what we do, we operate in 4 areas primarily. We start off with the business productivity suite, and we operate across the entire Microsoft stack. So everything from Dynamic CRM to Link Server, Office 365, Project Server, and Exchange. And of course, we put a big focus on SharePoint as well. And in terms of productivity, we also work with HP Trim. We also do business intelligence, so if you're looking around areas on real-time reporting and dashboards, we can help you there. And we also provide managed services, so a lot of organizations are considering a strategy to move into the cloud, either through Office 365, private clouds such as Azure. Antares can help you develop and create a strategy to move you into the cloud if necessary. We also provide IT infrastructure solutions. So if you need to host your IT infrastructure outside of your organization, we can do that. And we also have a unique innovation center. So we have a list of highly skilled developers who basically create solutions and advanced solution accelerators to help organizations increase their productivity. Here's a list of some of our customers, and what you'll see is that we operate across many different verticals, from professional and financial services to entertainment, state and federal government, retail, education, utilities, mining, and of course non-for-profit as well. So whatever vertical you're in, however large the organization, if you're looking for some help in terms of system integration, we can definitely help you there. Now, in terms of what we specialize in, we put a big focus on automating your business processes. So we work with workflows and forms to help you increase your productivity. We also do a lot of specialization around social business tools, which of course is a very big part of corporate strategy nowadays. So if you're looking to develop and integrate an enterprise-level social feature within your organization, we can do that. We do line of business integration with Trim, CRM, ERP, and bespoke solutions. A lot of organizations in Australia are looking to integrate Trim and SharePoint in particular. We can help you there. We create custom solutions. As I mentioned before, we do business reporting and real-time dashboards, as well as hosting and information management solutions. However, one of the big focuses for Antares and for most of our customers is the corporate intranet built on SharePoint. And what we see as a specialist integrator is that a lot of organizations really struggle to govern and manage their SharePoint environments. So SharePoint has the ability to scale very quickly and rapidly. And a lot of our customers come to us asking, how can we effectively govern, report, and manage these environments? In the same vein, actually migrating across different versions can be a very complicated and time-consuming process. And we see that a lot of organizations are afraid to perform the migration because they're not sure how to go about it effectively and quickly. So that's really the reason that we partner with Metalogics. They are the market leaders in these particular areas. And they have a suite of tools that can effectively help you to not only govern your SharePoint environments, but also to help you migrate across different versions, whether you're going to 2013 or into the cloud as well. So with that said, I'm going to hand over to Delta now, who will give you a very quick overview on Metalogics, and from there we'll proceed through to the demonstration.
Perfect. Okay, let me share my screen and we'll do a quick overview of Metalogic software. So Rob, thank you so much for the introduction. Let me make sure that everything's coming across as far as screen sharing is concerned. So can you see my screen now that we have Metalogic software up? We're good to go here. So thank you again for the introduction. We're excited to be partnering with Antares. We're actually speaking to you live from our offices in Melbourne. So let's do a quick overview of Metalogic software. Like I said, my name is Dalton Noter. I'm the Director of Sales for Asia Pacific. Once we do a quick overview, we'll look at the software itself, and our Senior Solutions Engineer, Mike Rain, is going to take us through a demonstration of our Content Matrix application as well as ControlPoint. So with that being said, Metalogic software is the market leader for SharePoint solutions. Actually now we have over 15,000 licenses shipped of our software. We've got 492% growth, 4 years running. Our global presence and headquarters is actually in Washington, D.C. in the States. And with the tremendous growth has also been organic growth, and we've made a few exciting acquisitions lately. So the Exceller ControlPoint product, we actually purchased Exceller, if you didn't see that in the news, and we also bought Idera's SharePoint Backup and Diagnostic Manager. So those are two things that we're excited to have. As far as our customers are concerned, we've got customers all around the world in 7 different continents. We've got some of the very, very large name customers you can see here. Specific to the Australian market, we've got companies like Woodside Energy, Rio Tinto, other very large customers that have offices here like British Petroleum, Shell, and Chevron. We are definitely the market leader in government entities, and specific to a lot of the SharePoint solutions and SharePoint needs around the world, like replication. That's one of the great products and one of the fantastic things that we have for Microsoft SharePoint. As part of the acquisition that we've made recently and the software that we've developed, we now have a full SharePoint lifecycle product management solution. So we've got the ability to migrate to the latest versions of SharePoint, synchronize the content between geographically distributed SharePoint farms. We've got governance and administration. That's one of the things we're going to be looking at today with ControlPoint. We've also got monitoring and the archiving, as well as backup and disaster recovery with our SharePoint backup solution. So we're a single source for the best-in-class SharePoint software solutions. We are very excited about the offerings that we have. The most popular product we sell is by far and away our Content Matrix migration solution that we'll be looking at. This allows you to go from various different ECM solutions into SharePoint, as well as the ability to migrate from a legacy version of SharePoint to the latest version, such as SharePoint 2013 or Office 365. So this is realistically where we started our endeavor into the SharePoint space back in 2001 with our migration solution, and this is by far and away one of our best products that's can be installed in SharePoint Central Administration and can empower the users to migrate to the latest version. And we've got a large, specific to the States, we've got a large number of customers moving to Office 365, and I know that's going to be a big concern down in the Australian region here pretty soon. The other thing that we offer and we'll be looking at today is our ControlPoint solution, and this is This is a great opportunity when paired with our migration product because it allows for quite a few different pre-migration reporting scenarios that you can do, as well as governing and administering your SharePoint 2010 or 2013 farm once you've migrated to that. So the things that you can expect to do here is manage permissions. You can very easily look at what some orphaned accounts are and see what users are accessing inside of your SharePoint site, see basically what content types or taxonomy that they're doing inside of SharePoint, and increase the adoption of SharePoint, which is really what ControlPoint's geared towards. Now, our Replicator solution is pretty big. That's something that's built into SharePoint Central Administration. One of the key things that this application offers is the ability to replicate across multiple SharePoint versions. So specific to very large government organizations or very, very large companies, when they have multiple SharePoint farms in, say, for example, Australia, the States, and maybe Europe as well, it allows you to go through and synchronize that content, not only in high bandwidth situations, but also if you're going through a satellite in very high latency, low bandwidth situations. It's got some great functionality there. Our storage point solution is our RBS or EBS offer. So if you've got a very large SharePoint farm and you want to utilize some cheaper versions of storage, such as NAS storage or maybe something like Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure, you can put the files themselves with blobs into cheaper versions of storage, so you don't have to have a very large SAN hardware. Or, for example, you can, with this application, make it quick to do backup and disaster recovery, as well as optimize your SharePoint offering. This is what StoragePoint's good for. And this is also built into SharePoint Central Administration. We now have the fastest SharePoint backup and restore solution available for SharePoint. This is a great application that was part of the IDEA acquisition that we made 2 to 3 months ago. And if you're looking at doing a disaster recovery solution for SharePoint, this is something that I encourage you to look. And with that being said, we also have our SharePoint Diagnostic Manager that can warn you if there are any performance implications or other management situations that need to be looked at for SharePoint on any of the servers that you have, be it the web front ends, the app servers, the index servers. That's something that Diagnostic Manager looks at as well. The vision that we have for Metalogic software is to be the single source for your SharePoint ISV needs. So with the acquisitions that we've made and with the software that we've developed in-house, this is something that we now have to offer with our lifecycle management, as you can see. And with that being said, I'm going to pass the reins over to Michael Rain, and he is going to do a demonstration of ControlPoint and Content Matrix. We can look at the applications themselves and see how they can specifically help with your SharePoint needs. So, Mike, can you take us away from here?
I certainly can. Thank you, Dalton, and thank you, Bob. My name's Mike Rain. I'm one of the systems engineers for Metalogics. I'm actually an Aussie, but I'm over in California and live over here. Just going to start sharing. Can you see okay?
Yep, we can see you.
All right, fantastic. So the first product I want to walk through today and talk a little bit about, it's called the Content Matrix suite of products available from Metalogics. So in talking to customers regularly about migrating and moving content around between different versions of SharePoint or between different environments, whether it be non-production and production, or whether it be extranet and public-facing environments or intranets and things of that nature, is that generally when moving content, we have content in a lot of different places. So Metalogics has a single tool that enables you to migrate content from lots of different sources that you may have. Maybe you have some content from a file system that you want to shut down the file system and consolidate into SharePoint. Maybe you run another content management system for a period of time in e-rooms or in documents or something of that nature. Maybe you have data in Exchange public folders, and as a part of your upgrade of SharePoint, maybe you're doing things with Exchange as well and wanting to move the data from there. Possibly or including, you have some static-based websites. Maybe your CEO has a blog or a WordPress site, or you've done things with media wikis and little sprouts within your organization that have popped up. So Content Matrix is really a solution that allows us to bring content into SharePoint and move it around from lots of different places other than SharePoint. From a SharePoint perspective, we will allow you to move any version to any version, providing that you're going forward, which is something that our customers really like because it's the path of least resistance. If you're running on SharePoint 2003 or 2007, you're able to essentially jump all the previous versions of SharePoint and start to leverage SharePoint 2013, which has a lot of new features and a lot of new functions available. Now, along with doing that, not only are we able to migrate your data there, but we can actually transform the data and transform the values into being able to take advantage of the new features in 2013. What we see a lot of customers do or attempt to do is to just merely move their data to SharePoint 2013 by detaching databases or feeding it in some other way. And almost every feature in SharePoint 2013 is driven by metadata, whether it be a search, whether it be a taxonomy, whether it be social features and things like this. So being able to transform the data along the way and leverage new features in 2013 might actually be the reason why you go to SharePoint 2013 in the first place, to really leverage new functionality and social computing that Microsoft has made available in SharePoint 2013. There's a couple of ways that we can use Content Matrix depending on who we are within the organization. And the nice thing with our application is within 10 to 15 minutes from an evaluation point of view, you can have a look at it and move some data around. What I'm showing you at the moment is called the Content Matrix console, and it's about a 100 meg install from our website. There's a few different ways that we can connect to the data, understanding that sometimes our customers have been accumulating SharePoint content for many years. So if the data is in SharePoint and SharePoint is online, then we can connect to SharePoint in a read-only or in a live capacity where we can migrate the data from a live farm. So there is no downtime or there is no anxiety in doing the migration. We connect as another user to SharePoint. He may be a very busy user. In essence, he may be reading every file or every document in the farm, but there's no effect to the business at all. Whether the migration takes a day, a week, or a month, or a year, the business continues to operate. You'll notice there's a few different ways we can connect. So if we're the farm administrator, very simplistically, we can connect to the farm, maybe enter in a top-level URL, and essentially view everything from that level down, all the web applications, all the site collections and subsites, all the way down to list and item level. Let's say, for example, though, you're a site collection admin or a business champion within SharePoint. We're starting to see some of the burden being shifted from IT and be placed back onto the business because with a little bit of training or maybe watching some of our videos, a business champion or a SharePoint champion could connect to their sites, specify their own accounts, et cetera, and connect and access only the resources that they have access to or they own. So there is no over-encompassing or overarching service accounts or administrative privileges required. Sure, if you do have the keys to the kingdom, life is easy and we can view everything from the top level down. But depending on how SharePoint is set up and the different security models and how that translates to people in business having different access, this could be performed by an arrayment of people within the organization. The purpose here is really for us to make connections to all the various SharePoint environments that we have, whether it be at the farm level, the site level, or at the web application level. In doing so, we end up with a screen similar to what you see online in front of you. Let's, for all intensive purposes here, treat the left-hand side as the source and the right-hand side as the destination. And even if I had some data that wasn't live in SharePoint, maybe it was an old database backup, or maybe through a consolidation or acquisition, you've acquired more SharePoint or more data, then we can also connect to it from the SQL side as well by staging a database and mounting it in that regard as well. Once we've made connections in all the various on-premise, off-premise, Foundation, Enterprise, Office 365 environments, etc. that we have, your screen will look something very similar to mine. Now, for all intensive purposes here, the machine I have selected on the left, called my domain controller, is actually my 2007 farm. So if I open that up, you'll see that underneath the farm, I've got a series of service applications, web applications, etc. I can drill down further inside, for example, my engineering site collection, as to where you'll see that I have lists and libraries beneath that. Maybe I can come inside a particular list or library, or maybe I work at site level, maybe I work at site collection level, or maybe I work at web application level. It's really going to be dictated by the way you use SharePoint, and really Metalogics will retrospectively fit any of those scenarios. So let's say, for example, we just want to move a couple of documents. Not sure if there are any documents in here. There's not. If there were some documents, they would all be listed here one by one. All the content types, all the permissions, all the metadata, any taxonomy that you have relative to the data. We could do a right-click. Now, when we right-click, we get what's called the context menu. So from a context menu point of view, what we would want to do here is probably copy the list. Now, we could come over anywhere to where we have a connection into SharePoint, whether it be the same environment, SharePoint 2007. Maybe we want to take this document library and move it into the intranet site collection. So we could come down, we could do a right-click where we could do a paste. Or maybe we only want to take certain facets of this document library. Maybe we just want the permissions to give access to a different audience, things of that nature. If we do a paste, then we have a few options with regards to the way we actually migrate data. So the first time you're going to do the move, you're obviously going to move everything. But let's say the business continues to use SharePoint for the next 3 weeks, while you're taking care of other migration tasks, whether it be educating new users on 2013, formalizing and documenting new business processes or whatnot. We could actually rerun this job incrementally via a schedule, whether it be every day or prior to cutting the business over. And that's offering us some type of surety that the transitions for the business is very straightforward. Today you go to the old side and you continue to collaborate on documents. And tomorrow we change your URL and you go to a new site and everything is like for like. So I see a lot of people have a lot of anxiety around cutting over or switching over to the new system. By using a tool to allow you to forklift in and out your content, you're really mitigating all of that anxiety because you're in complete control. You could cut sites over individually if that's what you want to do. There are some options as well around, in this context, understanding we've selected a document library. It could be around how many versions of each file do you want to bring over. Understanding that versioning is a wonderful collaborative feature in SharePoint, but if you're going to be migrating data over and storing it for many, many years, do you potentially need all previous 8 versions of the document, for example? There are things like having the ability to apply content types to content as we're moving it across. Maybe we want to do things around managed metadata and turn terms into managed metadata, or turn off web parts and customizations to get back to running vanilla SharePoint in SharePoint 2013. We can map between different users and even retain missing users or deactivated and users that have left your organization's accounts and metadata by mapping it to a user as a placeholder, for example. If we come to a more feasible level to do the migration or the movement of content that maybe library level, let's go to maybe site level or site collection level. So the process is the same. We right-click and we copy the site. We come over to anywhere where we have a connection. So in this example, I'm going to take my 2007 engineering site that you can see through the browser view is pretty vanilla. There's not a lot of customization that's gone on here or anything as such. And I can come over to SharePoint 2013. And in this case, I'm going to take this site collection and I'm going to demote it along the migration. And I'm actually going to put it in as a sub-site beneath my Michael 2013 site collection. So I can do a right click and I can do a paste. So we can promote and demote and really move content around very similar to if we're on a file system by right-click copying and right-click pasting. So in this example, we're going to do a paste site. But say, for example, I didn't want to move this site at all. What I may want to do is just take all the content off the engineering site. Maybe I've created my new site in 2013 already, or maybe it's already functioning, and I just want to merge the content together, as an example. So you'll notice that we can do a paste site, which we'll have a look at in a moment, but we can also do a paste, what's called as paste special, which is where, for example, maybe we're just going to put all the content. We don't want to deploy a template, create a new site. The site's there. We just want to consolidate sites or consolidate maybe all the sub-sites because we've changed our site structure and we've learned things from running SharePoint in 2007 and 10. And now when you get a fresh basis to start again in 2013, you really get some good controls to fit your content the way you need it to be. It could be a situation where maybe you just want the navigation to be available. People really like the way they could browse through your sites in 2010, things of that nature. So it's very flexible in grabbing only what is in scope or only what is desired and moving that data across. Let's do a paste site following the context of we're going to create a new site. So in this example, it's going to say, well, maybe you want to change the template. Understanding that SharePoint 2013 has a lot of new sites available, things like community sites, things of that nature. Maybe you want to transform your team sites into community sites. Maybe you want to rename the site. So there are options, I guess, without going through every single one of them, that are all relative to the migration that really allow you to do it the way that your business dictates it. It's also, I see a lot of customers come up with a few migration scenarios, and it allows them to consult their business and say, for example, I can migrate your site one of 3 different ways, correlating to the different ways we can configure content matrix. And it's a very easy way for the business to be able to consume the migration, understand what it's going to look like on the other end, and then very easily for you to translate that into technology controls. Things like, do you want all of your existing software to come over, or do you want us to run it back to vanilla SharePoint? Do you want to preserve themes and master pages? Or, do you want to bring navigation over at all? Things of this nature. So as we go through, all the options that you see on the left-hand side are all relative to if we need to do something or we'd like to change its behavior, we can come down and configure it. If we don't want to change anything or we want to see what it looks like out of the box, then we would just hit Run Now. To come down, a few other ones that I see customers use quite regularly are things around permissions. Most environments that I see, unfortunately, that exist today, permissions have been an evolving process. So as such, they're not very clean. So in copying sites and data over, do we want to preserve item permissions and unique permissions, or do we just want to copy the permissions at the site level and as such restart our inheritance model again and get rid of all those unique and explicit permissions that really add complexity to our environment. Things around filtering in or out certain types of columns or lists or things of that nature. Our product will migrate workflows. So if you do have a workflow-heavy business process automation system within SharePoint, there is really no other way to continue to have your business continue to run those business processes and actually migrate SharePoint to a new version, retaining all of the history. Maybe the workflow's in progress, and prior to you migrating the site, we can move it over and things of that nature. It's not the topic of discussion today, but we have another product that's called StoragePoint. And essentially what StoragePoint does is it allows you as the business owner or as the SharePoint owner to be able to decide where your content lives at rest. So what we see a lot of customers do is migrate content from one database to another database. And databases from the SQL perspective usually live on very good hardware, on high spinning disk, and understanding we're setting up a new SharePoint environment, migrating data there, we're really picking up content that's stale or that may not be read for a long period of time again, and we're storing it in the same way as a document that we upload today or tomorrow to new SharePoint. So by integrating StoragePoint into Content Matrix, what it enables you to do is as we're moving all of the content from your current SharePoint environment, we could write it off to your SAN directly or directly onto your network storage, or even take advantage of Amazon or Rackspace or any of the clouds that are now in Australia and say, hey, from a storage perspective, I want you guys to hold on to this, but I want to control it and still run it in my SharePoint. So we've started to see a lot of customers that are considering whether going to the Office 365 cloud or whether to continue to run SharePoint on-premise. And this is, I guess, another spanner in the works or another scenario that says, well, here's a way for you to continue to run SharePoint on-premise and have complete control, but a way for you to move the storage burden off your premise, whether it be for older content from the previous version of SharePoint or newer content or whatever it may be. And understanding that we're not having to store legacy data in SQL Server, it has some implications and is a discussion point for how big you build SQL Server in the new environment. Maybe it doesn't need to be as big a machine. Understanding we're not going to fill it full of data from SharePoint 2007, things of that nature. So once we've gone through and selected all the various options that we need to, we can come down and hit Run. So when we hit Run, we actually are doing the migration in real time. So we're going to see, and we see here there's a notification about a workflow that's running. We can see now that it's going through and copying a site. It has the source URL. It has the destination URL. And we'll see it go down and create columns, move over documents, and all of these types of things. And we're actually getting validation as we go along. As you see from the first one, it was a warning to say that the workflow might not migrate properly. But from here, we can come down and see the sites are copying, the announcements lists, we're setting content types. And we're kind of getting validation of the migration in real time. What can also happen, depending on the skills that you have in your business, maybe you don't want to run migration like this, you want to script it. So we can use Content Matrix as a mechanism to do all of the configuration, and then we can hit a button and generate a PowerShell script. And essentially do all the heavy lifting for you. So from there, we can save the scripts, etc. We can put them into Windows Task Scheduler, and like your SharePoint personnel and resources do now, they're just running another script. So there's a lot of comfort in our tool because whether you prefer to use PowerShell or maybe you don't have those skills and you'd like to use something in a graphical user environment, we kind of cater to all different needs in this regard. We can see in this scenario the site was quite small, 300K of data was migrated, 10 lists with X number of items, etc. The other way that we can use Content Matrix is, say for example, we're just a business owner and we have no access to central admin, we have no elevated privilege within SharePoint. I'm just a normal business user within SharePoint. So what SharePoint means to me is what you see on screen. Hopefully your environment is a little more customized than mine, but to a lot of people that are involved in SharePoint, SharePoint is a web page, or SharePoint is a website where they go to and do things. So Content Matrix also gives you the ability to be able to involve these people if you choose to do so. Maybe it's on a site-by-site basis. And when they are interacting with their content, so you can see here I've got a normal document library on a pretty standard 2013 team site. I can select certain documents or certain items, and you'll see that Content Matrix appears in the ribbon. just as the way they are interacting and navigating around SharePoint at the moment. So in a normal example, they wouldn't be logged on as the farm admin, they would be logged on as themselves. So it provides them with a medium to copy or move selected contents anywhere else within the same SharePoint farm where they have permissions. So my name's Michael, I might have access to 3 different site collections or be the owner of 3 different site collections. Only what I have access to in SharePoint is going to appear here. But it now provides me with a mechanism to be able to move my data around very, very seamlessly, or even make a copy of it on another site. So we see a lot of organizations providing this mechanism to the business to help with the cleanup or the consolidation of content, especially if you've had site sprawl or you've given people elevated privilege and they've spun up more SharePoint than they've had hot dinners this month, things of that nature. There is a full audit trail. So at any point in time, within any library or within any part of the SharePoint system, we can come in and hit the audit trail, and we can see where data has moved to or moved from or where it's left and things of that nature. Wrong button, sorry guys. You'll see the history button just here. The other thing that we can do, either pre or post the migration, is hopefully you're doing things with the taxonomy. As I said, taxonomy is one of the, it's not really a requisite to go to SharePoint 2013, but if you want to do anything constructive there or take advantage of any of the new features, then we need to build out columns and we need to build out content types, and we really need to really start to create or grow our information architecture. So you could appreciate that content matrix is bringing all of the content over to 2013. Now site owners and content owners, after you've added additional columns with no values and additional taxonomy, can actually come in through SharePoint UI and actually add in all the different values that you're missing, so that you can index their content in a better way. People can find it in a better way and consume it in a better way, things of that nature. So this is not going to migrate the data for you. It's not going to take it from one version or another. But as either a pre or a post or an ongoing mechanism to the business, this is a way that they can, maybe not be as much of a burden on your IT department, and selected people can now have a medium to move content around between sites that they own. So now this is just a couple of ways that Content Matrix can help you reorganize, migrate, and consolidate content from any version of SharePoint across to any version of SharePoint. The next product that I want to talk to you about, and it is really an extension of Content Matrix, is a lot of people will ask me regularly, they'll say, Michael, well, how do I know what to migrate? Or how do I know what's been accessed? Or how do I know more about my SharePoint environment? And the question is a real good one, because SharePoint out of the box is fixated at doing certain things and providing certain intelligence at certain levels of its structure. And unfortunately, that doesn't always translate very well to business levels. The business doesn't work the same way as SharePoint works. So when the business is asking for, well, tell me the most active users across the 5 sites that I own, or tell me what is the most popular document relative to the engineering department, maybe the engineering department has 5 site collections and 200 sites. And because of the way SharePoint is architected and its reliance to do things one site collection at a time, it becomes very cumbersome to do the same thing 5 times in a row. And it becomes very complex as well. So the next product I want to talk to you about is called ControlPoint. And really what it does is it's an overarching administration, governance, and reporting mechanism that sits over the top of all of your SharePoint. So whether you run one farm and SharePoint in a simplistic view, whether you run 2007, 2010, and 2013 in tandem, you're doing things and going to Office 365, it's really designed to become the place of truth for your business to be able to interact with SharePoint from a management point of view. So in this example, I have 2 SharePoint farms. and take no notice of the names. It's just a mock environment. But what we're able to do is essentially get a bird's eye view down of all the different site hierarchies. So if I open up the farm known as Sarah B, we can see that there's a series of web applications within here. Let's look at, for example, department sites. We can see from within here I have a series of site collections. I can drill down, for example, into Alpha Snack Foods. We can see beneath there are a number of sub-sites. We continue to drill in through for example, the Skunkworks project. We can see there are sites beneath there. And this is a pretty good representation of how deep SharePoint goes. So ControlPoint is really providing kind of, the site settings or the central admin features right across the whole landscape. So let's say, for example, I wanted to make a change to multiple sites or multiple site collections or web applications at one time. I can actually select all the different sites that are in scope. Now, even if they're inside different web applications or even if they're inside potentially different SharePoint farms, and I can actually perform changes in batch or bulk mode. So, in the example where I need to update the site quota for 10 sites, I don't have to do the same thing 10 times. It's real, and what it might also mean is that your best SharePoint guy doesn't have to be taking care of such, what could be considered mediocre tasks, but because of the complexity within SharePoint, he might be the only guy who has the skills to do it. So again, when I right-click, I get a context menu where I can do an arrangement of different things. Maybe I'm a site owner or a business owner within the business, and all the sites I've selected are all the different sites I have in all the different web applications. Maybe I wanted a report around activity or around trending or around activity by user to see who the most active user or the least active user or document is on my environment. Maybe I'm wanting to do things around, as opposed to activity, maybe I'm wanting to do things around configuration. I want to come in and want to set permissions or manage site collection features. So rather than having to do things one by one, I can do them in batch. Less clicks per task is a good way to think of the configuration element of ControlPoint, especially around things like storage. How many duplicate files do we have? What types of file extensions are people storing in SharePoint? Give me some kind of an analysis on my content databases so that from a migration point of view, I can see how much of the database size is content, how much of it is audit, and how much of it is just empty space inside the database, things of this nature. So let's run a couple of reports. Just in the essence of time, we're going to run some live reports. We might just select a couple of sites rather than having to wait a couple of minutes for it to go out and pull some information. So let's, for example, choose Alpha Snack Foods. Maybe we're going to choose client sites, and we're going to choose the ingredient sites as well. Now, they don't have to be within the same scope. It can be anywhere within the same environment. When we do a right-click, let's come down to, for example, storage, and we're going to look at most and least used storage, or maybe storage by file type, just as an example. And if there is any particular burning desire to see any of these reports, we can provide them to you after the fact. So when we choose that, we get some different parameters around, let me get rid of this window here, around, well, are we looking to filter via certain file extensions? Are we looking to include or exclude? Maybe we want to schedule this to happen automatically so that once a week or once a month we just get this information to site owners. But for all intensive purposes now, let's just run it. So what actually takes place is that we, every night at about 2 o'clock in the morning, by default, we will go and do it and collect all the data relative to all the different reports and analysis we can perform on the farm. And we'll pull that information out of SharePoint and we'll store it in the ControlPoint system. So, firstly, from an auditing and reporting point of view, now if you run 10 or, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 different farms, bringing all of your data into one central point is going to let you run better reports. as opposed to doing things in the siloed land of SharePoint. Now, in this example, we can see overwhelmingly the biggest file extension is pages, but we're getting a breakdown as to what type of data people are storing within SharePoint, and quite a good representation. So we can see that people are using SharePoint for things they should be around documents. Now let's run another type of report. Let's go into storage and look at duplicate files, just as an example. So again, maybe we're just looking for certain filters or extensions. Maybe we're looking for a certain file name, or only consider it a duplicate if there's 5 copies of it or something of that nature. And all of these can be kind of set up to be set and forget, and it just delivers you the information you need via a schedule. So let's run it again. We give it a period of time. It runs the analysis against the data that we have here, and we can see all the various duplicate files and how many of them that we have. So, for example, this SharePoint planning document, maybe it's a very important document, but we can see we have 5 copies of it. And these are all the locations where we have copies of it. In one location, we actually have 4 versions of it. So, now we're starting to get better intelligence, or if we run this report, we can identify sites or different types of people within the organization that might need to do a cleanup or a consolidation prior to you doing the migration. The term with migration is garbage in, garbage out. So if we have, better analytics around what's there in the first place, we can make better decisions as to what we take over. Understanding that there's a cost for every document every year that we put into SharePoint, multiplied by hundreds of thousands or millions of documents over long periods of time. So another component of ControlPoint is around the governance. So particularly within SharePoint, sometimes people are given elevated privileges for certain business functions or whatnot, but it can really provide the framework for people to crash and burn SharePoint or make catastrophic changes within SharePoint. So we can build up different ControlPoint policies that basically enforce various governance strategies. For example, I don't want you to store more than 10,000 documents in a library. So when 10,000 documents are stored in a library, we'll actually notify the site owner and say, hey, you've set an enforcement policy to say, as such, this is the rule of the land. It's been exceeded. I'm now no longer going to, allow documents to be stored into this library. Things of that nature. Maybe we could another one to say, no explicit permissions can be created on the sites. You're only giving access to sites, and when somebody tries to give an explicit permission, guess what? They're going to get an error to tell them that they can't do that, things of that nature. Maybe we're going to do things around change management. Maybe we want to create, as a part of our taxonomy, we want to do things with content types or manage metadata, things of that information, things of that nature. Maybe we want to get better auditing out of SharePoint. We want to know who's looked at certain data, or tell me all the files Johnny has looked at in the last 6 months, and things of that nature. There are a lot of different use cases and a lot of different scenarios that ControlPoint can really encompass. I guess that the key takeaway is that it's sitting at the very highest hierarchy of SharePoint and giving you that bird's eye view down. So whether we're talking about better intelligence or better governance or better change management or configuration management or even better reporting, you've now got an overarching tool regardless of what version or how many instances that you can automate some of this data to around that. Especially around permissions. Permissions is something that a lot of our customers ask for better ways to do and better methods to manage than the ones that are given to you natively in SharePoint. Even the scenario, things like you have a new contractor come into your organization and you want to give him all the access across the whole farm or across multiple sites that exactly the previous contractor had. Well, depending on how you do SharePoint or how you do your permissions, this is a very complicated task. So, things giving you the ability to do things like duplicate permissions. Give him exactly the same permissions as the previous guy. Things of this nature. Is really the value proposition of ControlPoint at a high level. So I hope that's been of benefit. We've spoken today in a little bit of detail around content matrix and around ControlPoint. And even though they are separate solutions that are downloadable and deployable on their own, we see many of our customers using both of them as a migration solution as opposed to a migration tool or an administration tool, because the combination of them both provide the intelligence and then the mechanism to actually take care of a migration project as opposed to just taking data from one environment, detaching it, for example, and attaching it at the other side. Understanding that garbage in is garbage out. So that's what I had to show today in the time that I have. If there are any particular desires in the clicking around or whatnot, you've seen a report that's of particular interest or that you want to have a look at, we can facilitate that post from here. But on that note, I'll pass you back to Dalton and Rob, and thank you everyone for your time.
Okay, thank you so much, Mike. Let me reshare my screen here. So there we go. We're good to go. Well, Mike, thank you for that useful and very informative demonstration of ControlPoint and Content Matrix. I hope that everyone was able to see how both of the applications can be useful in a wide variety of scenarios for managing or migrating or various other things of their SharePoint 2010, 2013 farms. One of the things that we'd like to talk about today is the holiday offer that Metalogics and Antares are extending out to our customers and prospects. It's the ability to get 15% off the purchase of one product or 30% off the purchase of multiple products. All you've got to do to take advantage of this offer is mention this to your either Antares or Metalogic sales reps, and we'd be more than happy to talk about that and get you a quote. So if there's any end-of-year funding or if there's a specific need for one of the products, just let us know. We'd be happy to get you squared away. And this does extend to current Metalogics and Antares customers, so just reach out to us and let us know. Also, I want to point out that we do have trial versions of the software on the website, so if you're interested in playing with these applications in your own SharePoint farm, please reach out to us, and we'd be more than happy to facilitate that. And as Michael mentioned, if you're interested in, and you have further questions, maybe during a trial or would like to ask more or see another demonstration, just please reach out to us, and we'd be more than happy to help. At the last slide here, I've got really a who can help, so what our contact details are and how we are here to be of assistance to you on any of your SharePoint needs. We've got about 5 minutes left, so as Rob mentioned, I'd like to take the time now to make sure that we can answer any questions. So Rob, if you're there, you can basically read out the questions. We'd be more than happy to answer those. So please, at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you should see a Q&A box. So if you've got anything that you'd like us to address while we've got about 5 minutes left, please let us know, and we'll look into that and see if we can better answer your questions while we're here.
Thanks, Dalton. And also on that note, just to answer some of the questions people are having, yes, absolutely, this webinar session is being recorded. So if you do want to go through it at a later stage or share it with some of your colleagues, you'll get an automated email coming out probably tomorrow, which will give you a link to the recording if you do want to review it. Also, in terms of the pricing, Dalton did show you there that we're doing some fantastic discounts before the end of the year. If you do want to get exact pricing based on your farm and your requirements, we will be in touch with you just shortly after the webinar, and we can discuss that in more detail based on your particular requirements. Looking through at the questions, I think we've answered everything that people had. So at this point, as we're coming up to the hour, I think we can probably end off the webinar at this point. Just from my side as well, I'd like to thank everyone for coming onto the webinar. I really appreciate your time. I hope you found it useful. I'd also like to thank Dalton and Mike from Metalogics for giving us that great presentation. and really showing us how Content Matrix and ControlPoint can really extend the features that you get natively out of SharePoint and really provide functionality that's just not possible out of the box in SharePoint. So on that note, thank you everyone for coming. Really appreciate your time, and we hope you have a very good day further. Thanks very much.